Hello, good evening and welcome to the Gersnet Weekly Podcast. It's Sunday, 11th of February. I'm your host tonight, John McCallum. This is episode 314 of the Gersnet Podcast. Of course, the Gersnet Podcast is an independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is free. It's not just a podcast we have at Gersnet. There is a forum, there are articles, a social media archive and a history archive, and if you enjoy the pod, please let people know. Subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you get your pods. Now, tonight's show is going to be looking back at yesterday's match against Ayr Utd. We'll have a look at our first impressions of our 3 January arrivals, maybe look at our defensive record since Clement arrived, have a chat about Borna Barisic, and the Scottish Cup draw, which happened on earlier. And then if we have time at the end, we'll have a quick look ahead to the match against Ross County on Wednesday. And before I do all of that, I just need to have a quick chat with you about our sponsors, who are Forrest Precision Engineering. We couldn't do this without their help. Forrest Precision Engineering are a subcontract Glasgow-based engineering company and a big commercial sponsor of Rangers for many, many years, and we're delighted they're backing our podcast. And you can learn more about Forrest Precision Engineering by visiting their website, which is forestprecisioneng.com, or you might be more interested in the Forrest Precision Executive Lounge, which is a lovely hospitality area in the main stand. If you want to know more information about that, like how to book it, then contact the club directly at hospitality@rangers.co.uk. Okay. Now, I am joined tonight not by the people I thought I was going to be joined by, which isn't, I'm disappointed by that, not at all. But it's Super Bowl Sunday, and I know that's in an eagerly waited evening where overweight men in brightly coloured, tight-fitting costumes stand around for 3 hours while not a lot happens. So it's a wee bit like the Gersnet Presenters Christmas party. Anyway, tonight I now have 2 people with me who know the difference between a tight receiver and some block tackle. Chris and Stewart, you guys American football fans, or did you manage to get girlfriends when you were teenagers?
I tick the overweight box, but apart from that, I qualify for many of those British John, so I'll let Stuart determine what boxes he ticks.
Well, I'll tick I'm a favourite of tight ends, so I'll go down as a bit of a aficionado when it comes to American football.
Excellent stuff. Right, well, I hear the 69ers are on tonight, or is it the 49ers? I'm never entirely sure which one of these teams it's playing. Anyway, look, let's talk about real football. Let's talk about the game yesterday. Chris, I'm going to start with yourself. I mean, it was a pretty good match, I think, overall. These games are always a bit, they're funny affairs when you play teams from the Championship. You know they're going to be up for it. They brought a big support. They're not a bad team, United. We will all remember ourselves from our time in the Championship. There's not really a great deal between the teams in the Championship and the teams in the bottom half of the SPFL, I don't think. So it wasn't a huge surprise. They had a goal, but really, I don't really think that the game was really in doubt at any point. At the start of the match, when you saw the starting 11, did it surprise you that the team you decided to put out?
Not overly, no. I think that the manager he's been very careful with certain players over the last couple of weeks. He's addressed the Ryan Jack situation, similar situation with Tom Lawrence, and just in terms of managing his game time, I think he's trying to get everyone up to roughly the same level of fitness and sharpness. And obviously for different players that will take different lengths of time. I think he would like to have a core of both those levels within the group, and that means dipping certain guys in and out at certain times. So I think that the team he picked was a real statement of intent. I thought Dessers may have started just to get him a goal, hopefully, and try and get him a bit of confidence. But I say, taking no chances at all. Strong side. Surprise for me was Jack Butland starting. I assumed that Robbie McCrory would get a game, keep his place from the Dumbarton game. And it almost feels like if he can't play against Ayr United at Ibrox, when's he next going to get a chance? Because Butland's obviously been hugely impressive, very much the number one, arguably the best player in Scotland so far this season. If Robbie's not going to get a game in that type of fixture, it's hard to see where he gets in. But I think it's a real statement of intent from the manager, and overall Rangers were really comfortable. I don't think that, as you say, John, I don't think the result was ever in doubt. Slightly nervy in the second half. The second goal could have come a wee bit earlier, just to allow us on the gantry to start writing our intros and get everything signed off. It still came in ample time, thankfully, to avoid any late nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, you are right, actually. Whilst it's 1-0, and the longer 1-0 goes on, you think, well, they'll get a chance. They'll get a set piece, they'll get a corner or something. But even then, you still feel with this Rangers team that the team's got enough to go on and score another couple of goals if that does happen. Stuart, the one of the changes that he made was bringing back Borna Barisic. Obviously, he returned to the team and he scored within 10 minutes. He could have scored another. He really should have scored another. It was a horrific shot, actually, when you saw it. It's one of those ones you thought, what happened there? How did that ball end up where it ended up? And you realise that he just miscued it completely and scalped it off a defender. But, overall, what did you make of A, his goal, B, his performance, and C, I think ideally, I want to know, who is our first choice left back just now?
Yeah, I think Barisic is... the translation from Serbo-Croat to English is actually Stuart Monroe, because I think the more occasions he drops out of the spotlight and onto the bench, he suddenly makes a comeback as the guy to start, and any doubts about him starting quickly evaporated, I would say, after 10 minutes when he scored the opening goal, because he's that kind of guy who wants to get in that kind of position and have a crack at goal. I think he was one of the problems for Rangers. The fact that they scored after 10 minutes, you're then expecting, I'm not saying an avalanche of goals, but you're expecting it to be comfortable Rangers. It almost made it comfortable to be 1-0 up. And they were able to play the game then at their pace. But in terms of him being picked for this game, I concur with what Chris said earlier there. I think it was, we debated this on Friday night in the preview show. I think there had to be a kind of happy medium between those that maybe what he needed to play in terms of strength and those he wanted to play to see where they were in the grand scheme of things. And Barisic is one of these guys, but I think Barisic as well is one of these guys who, even though he has his critics, and occasionally has maybe only gives you a 5 out of 10 performance-wise, he never really lets you down. He is a pretty consistent performer, to my mind anyway. And so I wasn't really surprised to see him coming back in. Again, I think the manager had to show faith with one or two guys. And again, to agree with Chris, twice in the one night is quite incredible, but I will agree with him. The whole thing about Butland getting starting, I would have to think that Butland might have taken a step forward here and said, I want to play this game, rather than the manager having been the manager's choice. I think I remember this going back as far as Chris Woods and Nicky Walker, and Chris Woods basically saying, I'm playing, and it was only when he was injured that he didn't play. So he played in every match, and I think Butland has established himself as the number one. And the other thing I would say is that Butland's now in a situation at international level where he could be one of England's 3 choices in the goalkeeping stakes. If you look at who else they have there, they have a pretty established number one, but beneath that you've got guys who are either not being picked at their club or who are injured. Therefore, I think Butland just wants to, especially games that are going to be live on television, I think he just wants to be seen to be playing and keeping clean sheets in these games, simply because I think he might have an eye on going to the Euros.
So do you think Butland's our first choice left back?
It's Barisic. I would say that Butland actually probably could put a shift in there at left back as well.
Probably could actually. Yeah.
He does. And another thing I would say is that in terms of continuity, we saw against Aberdeen the other night there a bit of a howler between for Goldson as Ivory Coast just scored again. But the fact of the matter is that I don't think Butland, I think if Butland had actually stayed where he was when the initial ball was played, he would have taken one step forward and grabbed the ball instead of reversing. So I think either Golson or Butland particularly cover themselves in glory with the goal that they lost against Aberdeen. And I think defensively, the fact that he's lined up with Butland, Tavernier, Goldson and Suter again would make you think that he's going to try and win the game defensively before he wins it anywhere else in the pitch. So all in all, I think, going back to Barisic, he was the one change that I probably would have made amongst that back five.
Ridvan's been looking a better player. Everyone's been looking a better player recently. Ridvan's been looking a better player, but I think Barisic still. I think I'm still more comfortable when I see Barisic's name there, and I think we need a better left back than both of them. But I think he is probably still my number one. Chris, our Africa Cup of Nations correspondent there told us that Ivory Coast have is that 2-1 then? Is that the score now?
I think that's now 2-1 to 2-1. Côte d'Ivoire.
Ivory Coast, as we say in the West End. And it was our first proper look at the son of Ivory Coast. I couldn't remember the name of the capital. Abidjan, is it? Anyway, Mohamed Diomande. We kind of got a kind of cameo appearance from him during the week, but this was really our first chance to see him properly. What did you make of that first viewing? I'm not sure he was playing in his natural position, but I'm not entirely sure because I haven't really seen him play before. What did you make of it?
I thought he was okay without being overly eye-catching. I think we consider where he is fitness-wise, the length of time he's been actually working with the squad, length of time since he's played competitive football, us having made the move. I think it would have been wrong to expect too much from him, to ask too much from him. The manager did say post-match, I think he was playing slightly higher than is perhaps natural for him. I think he's playing slightly higher than eventually we will see him settle into the side. For me, I don't think he's done enough to say I deserve to start next week against Ross County, especially with a number of other midfield options right now. You'd imagine also Lundstrom comes back in as one of the form guys. For me, Tom Lawrence, very impressive against Aberdeen, is probably at the head of the pecking order to be inside along Lundstrom, and then obviously Cantwell plays in time, given the way the manager has spoken about Diomande, how excited he is to have him in the squad. Also, the money they've committed to sign him in the summer. He's here to play. Rangers need him to play because there's an investment there. Ultimately, they want a return on their investment, both in terms of trophies and in terms of pound coins come the end of it. So he will come into the team eventually. He will work his way into the side. If it takes a couple of weeks, then so be it. I think because of the options there, there's not this great rush to go and throw him in and ask too much of him when he's perhaps not at that level. I thought he showed a couple of nice touches. Wee bit unlucky with the shot he had early in the second half. He had a good connection on it and put it into the side netting. Apart from that, there wasn't really a lot there. I thought of the new boys, Cortez was obviously far more eye-catching, far more interesting. But he is slightly further along the line in terms of being ready to come in and make an impact. So I think we've seen enough in Diomande's wee cameo last week and into the weekend to think there's definitely something there. There's definitely a player there. People really excited about him. It might just take a few weeks before we actually see what he really can bring to the side and where he actually fits into that midfield.
It's funny because I thought he would hit the ground running. And Cortez would take a while to catch up because Cortez hasn't played a lot of football. He hasn't played a lot of football, full stop. But he hasn't played a lot of football this season. But it actually does, like you said, it did seem to be the other way around yesterday. Is that Diamande's preferred position? I thought he was maybe a bit more of a defensive midfielder. But I really don't know. And Raskin's struggling for form. I just don't feel Raskin's found his form yet since he came back from his last injury. And I did wonder if maybe we might see Diomande with Lundstrom beside him. But at the same time, I actually don't know if he's maybe the type of player who's supposed to play a little bit further forward and he's just going to take a while to get used to. Stewart, Chris talked about him there, Cortez. That was our kind of second look at Cortez. And he was quite impressive for periods yesterday. Now, I think you have to caveat all that with, we were playing against a team from the Championship at home. But at the same time, they were being no more defensive. And as I said at the start, I don't believe their players are significantly inferior to the most of the teams we play week in, week out. I certainly don't think there's going to be that much difference between them and Ross County, for example. But he caught the eye at times. He had a couple of lovely runs. He hit the post. What's your initial take on him? And do you think he's done enough to edge Matondo out of the wide left position?
I think because of the position he plays, and therefore as a winger, we touched upon this the other night there when we were talking about the wingers at Ibrox, be it Matondo or be it McCausland and what they contribute. I don't think it mattered very much how fit or match fit Cortez was. The fact he's a winger and you put a ball at his feet, he's out to go and try and do what he does best, and that's probably take people on and beat them. I thought he maybe was going to. He might have run out a bit of steam, but he showed enough enthusiasm right through the game, and he did show in flashes that he did have a bit of trickery about him as well. And again, I think that trickery will come to the fore, and certainly speed will come to the fore once he's a bit fitter. So I think all in all, you can be satisfied with his performance. Just to touch on what you were discussing there about Diamande and the likes, there are defensive or holding midfield players are tend to be seen as being slightly defensive types, when actually if you've got an attacking midfielder, he can still actually play in the defensive role as well, because he's maybe more creative further back. And I think Rangers have still to strike that kind of balance between who's the holding or sitting player and who is a guy that maybe comes forward and adds weight to your attack. And I think because of personnel changes, I think because of injuries and guys maybe just losing form, sometimes I think that part of it has been difficult for Clement. I don't think Beale had a clue what he was trying to do in those particular areas, but I think Clement has a pretty much an idea of who he would like as a holding or sitting midfielder, who he would like to play beside him, somebody who might contribute a bit more and actually get forward, and who might be the attacking midfielder. I think Lawrence had a fantastic game against Aberdeen. I think if you watch that game again, for the purposes of research, I watched it twice, as I always do. I think he took up some great positions and made himself available a lot of the time, and didn't hide. So I think all in all, there are certain guys, and again, Cortez got his chance yesterday. You have players who will either take that opportunity and do something with it, or players who basically have their chin on their chest saying, I'm only playing this game because somebody else is being rested and I need to turn out on a miserable Saturday night against Ayr United. I won't let anybody down, but then I'm not going to try very hard. I don't think that applied to Cortez. I think he actually tried to take the opportunity that was given to him, and I thought he did pretty well. Yeah,
I don't think Clement would stand for that. I think the feeling that anybody who had that attitude would not last long in Clement's dressing room. I think he's someone who's looking for every. I was talking to a couple of friends after the match, and we both said the same thing that Clement's teams play for the full game. There's they go to the full game. They don't tire. They don't run out of ideas in the ways that some Rangers teams have in the fairly recent past. You get a full 90 minutes out of this team. He makes substitutions at the right time. He seems to substitute the right people to bring energy back into a game. And I really don't think Clement's the kind of manager who will suffer somebody who isn't giving it absolutely everything in every single game he plays.
I think that part of it, just you mentioned there, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I think there was a real tail-off in fitness levels with Rangers under Beale. Yeah. I think they honestly, rather than training of a day or even doing a big long warm down or warm up, I think they basically went to the cafe for a couple of rolls and sausage and a cup of coffee, and that was them done for the day. When you look at the fitness levels of Rangers when they're under Giovanni van Bronckhorst, Rangers were a fit side, and it got them through some big matches, especially cup
Absolutely,
ties.
in Europe,
In Europe, they played a final that went to extra time. They then came back with the disappointment of that, and then won a Scottish Cup final that then went to extra time. So that was a fit squad, and I always found it particularly frustrating that a team was allowed to tail off from those levels of fitness whilst Beale was there. And after about an hour, you just knew that Rangers had nothing else to give, and that's when the substitutes came. Yeah. But I think you're absolutely right. I don't think Clement is the kind of manager who basically says, "I'll give you an hour." I think maybe he's looking for guys to run about for 2 hours, and then they'll have done a shift and deserve to get paid.
I don't know why. I mean, it didn't work with Beale. I don't think there's any debate about that. But I can't believe that Beale is some old school manager who doesn't believe in getting the team properly fit. So I really don't know what happened there, and I don't have any particular insight into what happened there. But there is no doubt the team looked fitter, and from reading between the lines with what a lot of Clement said in the kind of run up to Christmas, he made a number of comments about the not so much the fitness of the players, but their propensity to pick up injuries. I thought he chose his words quite carefully so that he wasn't making big criticisms of what had been there before. But at the same time, he did express on a number of occasions his surprise, if you like, at the number of injuries we're picking up, and that is ultimately connected to fitness and conditioning. These things are, and clearly he has different ideas on that and where that's going. Chris, last of the three new players was Silva, who had an eventful game. I think it's fair to say. I think most of the game's talking points he was involved in. Obviously his goal, which he took well, I thought, a nice striker's finish. Matondo's attempt at a header will just brush over very, very quickly. But I thought he took his goal well. I thought he had a decent game. I quite like him. That's the kind of second time now I've watched him, and I thought, yep, you got something about you. You put yourself around there. You're running the entire match. You must be a nightmare for defenders. Having played against guys with all that energy. When I was young, I hated people like that. Give me somebody who was very skillful any day of the week. But these guys who just ran and ran and ran, I hated playing against people like that. But he was also involved in a couple of controversial moments. He got picked up a booking in the first half, which, in my opinion, was not a booking. And then didn't pick up a booking in the second half, which of course would have seen him sent off, which certainly at first glance looked like a booking. What did you make of his performance? What was your impression of those particular incidents, Chris?
I think performance-wise overall, it was good once again. I thought against Aberdeen in midweek, it was really, really impressive when he came off the bench. There was a real step up in level there, and you could tell this is a guy who's got real talent. You can see why teams have invested in him, why clubs have paid the sums that they have for him. He should be far too good for Ayr United, and ultimately he was, because he had the hand in the goal that also got Rangers over the line. I thought, as you say, John, he took the goal really well. It's been interesting to see. There's so much talk about Rangers number 9s and people not happy that there's not another one, and this guy won't score as many goals. The more goals he scores, the quieter all that noise will become. It's nice to see him score different kinds of goals. He's a couple of headed efforts. I thought that one was more of a striker's, right place, right time, swiveled really well, good finish. So I thought it was another encouraging performance. I'd like to see him start again on midweek against Ross County. For me, he is, you're talking about first choice at left back, for me he is first choice at number 9. And the more time you can get him on the pitch, the more goals he'll score, the more chance Rangers have got of being successful this season. In terms of the bookings, like you, if the first one doesn't get a yellow card, I don't see him being up in arms about it. It's one of those challenges. I didn't really see the fuss. I talked to a couple of guys in the press room afterwards, and I was saying Willie didn't have to book him for that one. So if he hadn't, there wouldn't have been a massive furore about it. And if he doesn't book him for that one, the whole chat about the second one isn't. I think he's gone in too early. You let that one slide. You say, look, you have a quiet word in his ear, say, like, you're a wee bit late there. Don't do that again. And if you then actually book him for the second one, you can say, well, you've had that one, you've had the one earlier on that I warned you about. Now you're getting a booking. So I thought that there was no real need for the first one. Second one is slightly mounting out of a molehill stuff for me. I think it's not a great challenge. Does he deserve to go off the park for it? No. And I think the comments from both managers post match were not surprising. I think they both called it. And they both took a stance exactly how you'd expect them to.
Yeah. But the second one is the kind of challenge that you see get booked now. And I have to be honest and say, I don't know if Colm watched the highlights at halftime. I don't know if is that even possible for them to do. Did somebody in his ear say, we've had a look back at that, by the way, that was a soft booking, really, I don't think you should have given that. And if he's had that in the back of his mind that, right, okay, I'll give him one in the second half. I don't know if it's as simple as that. But overall, though, I think I was impressed with Silva. He's got something about him. There's a bit of aggression there, which I think you need. There's plenty of energy, and he looks. I think we all felt looking at his statistics and the little you could see of him that we weren't buying Chris Boyd. We weren't buying a guy who's going to score 35 goals a season. But he does have an eye for goal. There is no doubt about that, and I like the goal he scored. It was a striker's goal. It was an instinctive goal. You're in the right place. You turn, you hit it. It's in. It was the kind of goal you want to see a centre forward scoring. You're laughing away at me there, Stuart.
It's only the comparison with Chris Boyd. I thought you were actually going to say we weren't going to sign Chris Boyd. We were signing somebody who might run. The other thing I would say very briefly and very quickly. Listen, Scott Brown gave his call. He was the only guy that in Scotland that thought that Scotland didn't score a try at Murrayfield as well. So he's entitled to his opinion about everything, and so no surprise in that one. But I think the other thing I would say is that did Willie Collum go in and watch it at half time? Willie Collum couldn't watch the television when that was his job a couple of weeks ago. So there's no chance of getting in and sitting down and plonk on the old Betamax to see what he's missed or what he's missed out on. So and all three of those ones I'd have to take exception to what you actually said.
Yep, no problem. Well, look, just before we carry on, I just need to have a quick chat with you guys about Football Prizes, who are another one of our sponsors. And they have got an interesting competition this week. You can get, see, my dog is excited by this competition. They have got a signed Philip Clement Rangers shirt. Now, I don't think he's actually worn this in a game, but they have a Rangers shirt and it has Clement on the back and it is signed by him. It's a ticket price of £9.95 and the draw will be on Friday the 16th. I read quickly in front of me, but we are delighted with this, and they only do 29 tickets. So although it's an expensive ticket, your odds on winning are pretty decent. And as I said, signed Philip Clement. So that's Football Prizes. If you want to know more about that, have a look at the Gersnet Twitter feed, and you'll get some information about that there. Staying with the referee, staying with Mr. Colm, Stuart. That's the first time he's refereed Rangers since the Old Firm game and everything that came along with that. You've touched upon it there. What did you make of his performance? He was under a bit of pressure beforehand. Did he impress you? Did you think he was better off staying at home watching TV?
He was only under pressure in our minds. There you go. That says it all. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think Willie Collum reads a column inch of a newspaper or a blog or whatever it is. He does.
I hear he never misses this podcast.
Well, I would actually lay money on that he doesn't actually know of his existence. He is maybe his lawyer does, but anyway. The fact of the matter is that, listen, Willie Collum had made, as a number of referees have, they made enough mistakes and errors and blunders in their capacity as match officials over the years, long before they turned up for a game a couple of weeks ago. And you take what you get. Particularly, I don't think there's any particular outstanding referees, but then again, I might be judging referees on what I used to witness in yesteryear, when referees were the sole arbiter of all decisions, and you didn't have 27 different camera angles trying to prove, 27 people in a studio right. You had a referee make a judgment call, and you might read about it the next day in the paper, but that was it. Forgot about it. There was no social media trying to, crucify officials for the decisions they'd taken. So all in all, I thought he turned up. I absolutely agree with both of you when he booked Silva probably to justify his match fee, and then suddenly realised he was a pile of keech because the guy produced another foul. So all in all, I thought it was a pretty nondescript afternoon. And to be honest, if Willie can call him can keep every afternoon or every evening that he's a match official that way for the rest of the season, I would be quite happy.
Well, there's incentive for Willie Collum keeping Stewart happy. There's something many people have not managed over the years.
Actually, Chris is one of the few who actually has managed to keep me happy. Not just content, but also with his honesty when it came to doing his expenses for the week. So that's something I've always held him in high regard for that.
There you go. Stuart, I think, has just admitted on there that Chris used to split his expenses with him. Chris, Clement said something before the match which I thought was quite interesting, and he said that he didn't agree with the club when they'd made their complaint about Collum and asking for him to be removed as a referee. And I think, I'm maybe slightly misquoting him here, but I think basically what he said was that if he thought that any referee was corrupt, that he would quit. I think that was more or less what he said, that he didn't believe referees were corrupt. And I think basically what he was saying is, look, sometimes they're not very good, but I don't think they're corrupt. Do you think they're corrupt, or do you think they're just not very good?
I think they're just not very good, and as Stuart said there, I think there's a body of evidence, shall we say, that suggests that they're not very good. If anyone thinks that the game is bent or the game's corrupt up here, why are you putting your money into it? If you believed, take you as an example, John, if you believed that the game was bent against Rangers, why would you go on Wednesday night and go and watch the Ross County? If you believed that the outcome of the title race had already been predetermined and everyone was working towards that agenda, why would you put your money, why would you spend your time going to watch a product in a sport that doesn't have any sporting merit? So there's a lot of people say that the world's against us. It's not. It's just the fact that referees up here aren't very good, and the system that has been brought in to try and assist them has only made it worse, because it highlights just how many mistakes they're making in the first place. VAR should be good, but the people that are running it are not very good, and that's why we end up in this. Situation. I don't think the world is out to get Rangers. I just think the standard of Scottish refereeing, as it has been for a number of years, is not good enough. And Rangers pay their share of the price for that, as do other clubs.
But there would be a significant number of people, some of whom live in this same city as us, who do think that referees are corrupt, and some of them, if you can get them talking about something other than football, are actually surprisingly normal. But when you got them onto that subject, they do genuinely think that there is corruption at the heart of refereeing in Scotland, and that these things are preordained. And when you point out them that, well, you've just won 11 of the last 12 titles available, so this corruption is not doing terribly well. That doesn't seem to fit in, and it is surprising. Just how many of them do think that. Now Collum is somebody that, I have spoken to Rangers supporters about in the past, and he is somebody that people feel will give the other team the benefit of the doubt. It's a 50-50, he's giving it to the other team. I don't know. I've never been entirely sure of that. I've always gone along the lines of, well, I think it's incompetence. But there's a growing body of people who do think that there is. I think corruption is too strong a word, but that perhaps pressure can be applied, and I think that's what a lot of people felt at the Old Firm game, that pressure had been applied before it. And that led to favourable decisions being made for the team whose directors were applying the pressure. And I thought Clement's take, and this has been his take through, he's spoken reasonably well about referees and said they've got a hard job, and you see him make go to speak to the referee at the end, and he seems to have a fairly amicable conversation with him. And the cynic in me wonders, is this just his way of keeping the referees on side and maybe not having build a rapport with them and have them, they're human beings after all, and we are all susceptible to someone being nice to us, particularly somebody we might not expect it to be nice to us. What do you think, Stuart? Is Clement, is he playing a game here, or is this genuinely how he feels?
No, I think he's very genuine. I think he's very genuine because, by the way he approaches referees and the chat, albeit brief, on the pitch that he actually has with them. You'll see him actually at times when he speaks to referees, he'll point to certain places on the pitch where there might have been a decision made that he maybe didn't agree with. But he's not going up to somebody and shouting in their face, that kind of thing. I would have to say about Willie Collum as well, he is a bit like an unexploded bomb. I think if you asked a number of fans from a number of clubs what they thought of Willie Collum, they would say he was equally unpredictable whenever their side was playing as well. I think he's a guy who referees the game as he sees fit for himself and no one else. Therefore, you're going to get the unpredictability. And just what you mentioned earlier on there, I mean, Easter Road the other night there, and 2 penalties, including one in stoppage time. I mean, there'll be meetings at the Grand Lodge of Scotland in terms of Masonic conspiracies about how Celtic managed to get 2 penalties in the one night against Hibs at Easter Road. Given that that's only supposed to happen to Rangers, but
I know they get 2 the game before.
I know. But let's not point out the obvious on this one. Listen, I've said it all along, the standard of refereeing, and Chris would agree, if you watch enough matches, there are things that you see in games that are nothing to do with Rangers, nothing to do with Celtic. You go and watch these matches and some of the refereeing decisions are absolutely abysmal. They are shocking. And the only reason they don't get recognised is because it isn't one of the Old Firm that's playing in these games, or it isn't televised. So VAR was supposed to assist people, but if you don't know how to work it, it's no point in having it. I see it as like a form of when televisions, you started to get a remote control with the television, and if you didn't know how to work the remote control, there was no point in having it. You'd be as well just handing it to the kids, and sometimes I think you'd be as well just giving the kids a VAR monitor and say, what do you think of this one? So I think we are where we are, and until somebody has, for basically a better description, the balls to make a decision that actually will help and assist Scottish football, and that would mean somebody possibly even resigning in their capacity as head of referees or whatever it is, and say, I think somebody else could do this better, or that will never happen. We are going to be left with this, and we'll still be talking about the same thing probably in 2 or 3 years' time.
Well, that saves me writing a new agenda. I'll just put the same old questions forward. Listen, just before I change subject too much, I just wanted to kind of get you guys' opinion on our defensive record. Strangely, it's basically the same defence that we've had for, the last couple of seasons, with a new goalkeeper, obviously. And that's really the only significant change. Barisic has been at the club now for 4 or 5 years. Tavernier is an ever-present. Goldson's pretty much an ever-present, and somebody else beside him, whether it's Balogun, whether it's Suter, whether it's someone else. But we are defending really very well just now. 12 goals we've conceded this season. And under Clement, we are a very, very difficult team to score goals against. How has he done that? What's changed there? Because ironically, I still hear criticisms of Barisic, of Tavernier, and actually of Goldson, that they're not great defenders. Well, if they're not great defenders, then whoever plays alongside Goldson must be a fantastic defender, because somehow we're not conceding goals. And defending is done from the front. I get all that. But something's changed with this team. Something's changed with this defence. We are not conceding goals just now. We are playing well defensively. We are a hard team to beat because of that. What's he done? Chris, do you notice something different with the preparation, the mentality? What's changed?
I think a lot of it feeds into the improvements that I've seen elsewhere on the pitch. He's raised individual levels. Now, I think if you go back to the start of the season, confidence levels and form levels were way down, and that obviously filtered its way through every area of the side. The manager has come in, he's raised all those levels, he's raised all those standards, and that's clearly helped defensively as much as it's helped in the middle of the park, as much as it's helped up front. I think he's spoken a few times about not parking the bus and being hard to beat, but giving the team more of a structure. I think the way the side's set up, it lends itself to being harder to break down, because at the start of the season there wasn't really a structure or a style of play. I think we all spoke often enough about what is it Rangers are actually trying to achieve, both defensively and defensively. They're just for a coaching staff who were meant to be brilliant on the grass, there just didn't seem to be anything there. I think that the manager, in such a short space of time with very little time actually on the training ground, it's very, very impressive the job that he's managed to do to turn this entire side around, to turn so many individuals around. I think defensively, the goalkeeper also plays a huge part in that. We both also spoke at Butland earlier on. He's been signing of the season, player of the season. Having him there, I think that certainly helps the back four, because they know if teams get by, you can rely on Butland to make a save. He's done it so often over the course of the season. That certainly helps. Overall, I think defensively they can still improve. I think it's an area that we'll probably see a bit of investment in over the course of the summer. You're looking at Ben Davies moving on, you take a fee back for him, you reinvest the wages. Balogun, they maybe give him another year. If not, you reinvest the wages. Left back, we touched on earlier on, potentially two coming in. So that I think there will be a bit of movement in the back four over the course of the summer. Obviously, who knows what's going to happen goalkeeper wise? If someone puts enough money on the table, we may be looking for a new goalkeeper as well. So, but I think the good thing is the manager has shown he has the coaching capabilities and the man management skills to set up a defence. So even if the component parts change, you would back him to be able to go and build another one. Because if he can build one out of what Beale left behind, he should be able to go and build one that he's actually bringing in the bits himself.
Yeah, that's the point, isn't it? It's true. It's what he's done with the tools that he was given.
Correct, but I don't want to make this some sort of Jack Butland tribute night. But an interesting thing with Butland was teams, if they get through previously against Rangers, McGregor could pull a save out. Butland is more mobile than McGregor, and his call out when to come and when to clear and when to put his boot through the ball, I would say, is superior to what McGregor was in his latter years. The other thing is, and this came from a source, namely a player, who said that when Butland shouts, he's not a cheerleader. He's not shouting at the defence because he thinks that's the done thing. He actually lets them know for a reason. And I think that's why Butland gets the job done, by pointing things out to people rather than having a screaming fit at them, which McGregor was liable to do. Well, just about anybody, I have to say. But I think Butland is far more measured and calculated on what he actually does. And I also think he's got a certain sort of mindset. It puts me in mind of Chris Woods a lot. Chris Woods was a fantastic goalkeeper at Nottingham Forest under Peter Shelton. He then moved, away from Forest, went to Norwich and established himself there, and then came to Ibrox. And I think the fact that he'd actually moved through a number of clubs and learned his trade, I think Butland's the same. You have to remember that Butland is actually, he could get the 5 rings tattooed in his leg being an Olympian if he really wanted to. So he's done a lot in his career. He's still relatively young goalkeeping wise.
Yeah.
And I think he has given Rangers a focal point that what he actually backs up what he says through his actions with the saves that he makes. So therefore I think he's a lot more commanding than having a committee meeting between Tavernier, Goldson and McGregor at whatever went wrong previously.
Okay. The draw was made. So Hibs away. What do you make of that? How do you feel about that? I mean, it could have been better. We could have got a home draw. I think really we would probably accept anyone at home. Easter Road, we've done okay at Easter Road in recent times. There's still that thing about Easter Road's a hard place to go. Actually, it hasn't been that hard a place to go for most teams this season. But at the same time, Hibs are the kind of team that could give you a bloody nose. That's particularly at Easter Road, if they can get a crowd behind them, if they can get a bit of momentum going. They obviously got a win yesterday, having had a couple of heavy defeats. So, what's your take on that, Stuart? How do you feel about Hibs coming out the hat? Are you happy enough with that?
I think we get to the quarter-final stage, you've only got another 7 teams in the draw. It really is a bit like the draw is locked. There's not a hot ball and a cold ball, whatever it is. The only danger or fear would be that Hibs are built up to be a better team than they actually are. I think we had a bit of that yesterday ahead of the cup tie against Ayr, where this is a team managed by Scott Brown. Okay, so go down to Fleetwood and have a poll of what they thought of Scott Brown as their manager. And the fact he's actually now, located himself at Ayr probably tells you everything you know on that front. But I think Hibs, the danger with Hibs is, one, they're built up to be better than you actually think, and secondly, they are due 90 minutes against somebody at some point during the course of the season. If you play enough football matches, you might get one decent 90 minutes, and you just hope it isn't going to be against your side. So that would be the danger for me. But I have to say the mindset of Rangers under Clement is, we're better than you, therefore we will beat you.
Yeah, Boyle's back, and he does make a difference to their team. I think he's actually a pretty decent player. I'm surprised he's still at Hibs. I know he did leave for, I think, the Middle East, and didn't last too long, and came back. And I am surprised he's still at Hibs, because I actually think he's a pretty decent player, and I think he does make a difference to their team. But like you say, at this stage, a home draw, I would have taken anybody at home. I can live with Hibs away. Looking forward to Valentine's night, Chris, I think it is, on Wednesday. Will you be taking in the Ross County game, or will you be taking one of your many mistresses out on a date? If I don't answer that, because this is live. Listen, Ross County are currently managerless. Does that make it harder to predict how they'll approach the game? Is that actually not going to go in our favour? They're started the season, and I think they're all just very grateful that Livingston are having such a bad one, because it didn't really work. It wasn't really working out this season under Mackay. He moved on. They brought in Adams, a very strange appointment. It's a guy who's already managed them twice, who played there, who clearly knows the chairman. The chairman must know him. And he arrived as if he'd never been there before in his life, starts complaining about the quality of players, the quality of the league. You think, bloody hell, if anybody in this country knows what it's like to manage Ross County, it's you. Why are you complaining about this? A very peculiar, short period in Ross County's history, I have to say. I really don't know what happened there. They've got, is it Don Cowie that's now their kind of stand-in? They may have a new manager by by Wednesday night. I don't know. I don't know what stage they're at with that. But either way, does that make them harder to predict? Does that actually not really something that helps us?
Even if it does make them a slightly different proposition than they were this time last week, it should still be one that's vastly inferior to Rangers. Now, when you look at everything that's there for Rangers, chance to go top of the league, probably a full Ibrox, team very much in form, players playing well, as we've just spent the last hour or so discussing. There's no excuses for Rangers. The fact that Ross County maybe get the Don Cowie bounce doesn't come into it. It's all there for Rangers just to go and do the job. This game in hand it's been in the backs of minds for a long time as the gap has been whittled down, as the dynamic of a title race has changed. It's always been this game. People just want this one played. They want it won. They want the points on the board, and that then hopefully changes the look of the Premiership table in Rangers' favour. So I don't think the manager will be overly fussed about who's in the Ross County dugout, because we also had the same situation last week. Neil Warnock going into Aberdeen, we were expecting something from them. Got it to an extent, but Rangers still managed to get the job done and win the game Wednesday night. Should be the same.
Yeah, I mean, and again, Rangers have it within their own power to go top. If we win by more than 2 goals, that's us. We go top, and Ross County at home, without wishing to tempt fate, you couldn't really have asked for a better game to see that. Do you see many changes in the starting lineup? It's difficult to predict. Clement, I mean, he makes changes, and certainly changes I wasn't expecting. He does like to rotate, I think is the term we use. Stuart, do you see many changes being made to this game, or for this game?
He has in his mind his best 11 or best starting 11 or the starting 11 that he would like to put out.
And do you know what that is? Or do any of us know what that is?
Well, actually, I think he's listen, I might be mistaken here, and other people might have a view they'd like to share. I actually think he is a guy who picks his team based on who the opposition are, knowing that there are certain people who would do a better job against different opponents than just putting the same team out week in, week out. I think there's 1 or 2 positions that are up for grabs. So to that end, I don't think you can always predict what the side he's going to put out, but I think ultimately there's about 8, 9 in that starting 11 that you would put down there and not have any debate on it. The other thing I think his mindset is that Rangers go out, they play, they win, they go for 3 points. If they score 1 and that's enough, then that's what the result's going to be. If they score 4, 5, 6, then that would be a bit of a Brucey bonus on that front. I think he sets his team out to win the matches, and as long as you keep winning the matches, you keep applying pressure to those around you. And I think first and foremost, he puts out a team to win the game rather than thinking to themselves, we've won this game, how many goals can we score?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think, I don't know. I would agree with you there. I don't think it's as simple as saying, right, let's go out and score 5. It's about going out and commanding the game and winning it. I agree there, but it must be at the back of the players' minds. Who do you start up front? Because I was really surprised when Dessers started against Aberdeen. I didn't see that move coming. Do you think, will he come back into the side? Is it a case of Dessers plays midweek and Silva plays on Saturdays? Or, who do you see starting up front, Chris?
I would think Silva. I think, as we spoke about earlier on, he looks as he should do, given the money involved in his career and the profile and all the praise that he's had over the course of his career. He looks like the better option. I think he is the number 9 for Rangers right now. I thought the managers, the way that he handled and the way that he spoke about Dessers after Aberdeen, it was a case of, we'll put him in, and this is my words, not his. He can do the donkey work, if you like. He'll occupy that Aberdeen defence. He'll run them in certain areas. He'll be a bit more physical, and then when they get tired, by the way, we've got a £30 million guy we can bring off the bench. And I thought you saw the benefit of what Dessers can do. Didn't have a lot of chances, didn't have a lot of sights at goal, but he played his part in the win. And he then saw Silva come off the bench and just add something different. I think if you're going to pick, Stuart's talking about a best 11, for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people, Silva is the man you'd want in number 9. But again, as Stuart said, it's very much a what's the best team to beat this team, not what's the best team on paper, what's the team that is going to get social media likes. It's what's the team that's going to get the job, however it's set up, whatever the 90 minutes, what can I do off the bench. It's how do I beat this team and win the game. So I think it's very, very hard to call on his side. Personally, I like to see Silva start. I think he's more than got enough quality to go and do a bit of damage and hopefully get himself another goal. If it's Dessers, you back him to do a job. And we've seen goals coming from other areas of the side, which is good as well. Seen Barisic chip in for the first time in a long time, but Cantwell's in good form. Matondo's got a couple. You're looking at maybe Lundstrom stepping up. McCausland, nice if he can get back in about it. It's not a case of if the Rangers number 9 doesn't score, Rangers don't win games. There's goals from other areas of the side, and it's very much a team game these days.
Yeah, I think it's very true. Just to pick up on what Chris had said there, I think you're absolutely right. I think the Aberdeen game and Dessers starting, I think probably Clement saw that as being one, physical and a bit of an arm wrestle, and secondly, that Aberdeen with a new manager in charge would be showing us a different level of combativeness, let's say, to actually go out and make their mark in the opposition, quite literally at times. And because of that, Silva wasn't really the guy to maybe play in that game. Maybe Dessers was the infantryman, and it was could be utilised to that effect. I think what Chris is saying is right enough as well about Silva. If you watched the game against Ayr yesterday, he caused a lot of confusion or created pockets of space for other people to go into, simply because he dragged central defenders, either dragged them wide or dragged them out of position. And you suddenly had two players, a central defender and maybe a right back or a left back, picking up on a striker. And you could see them looking at each other to say, is this your guy or is he my guy? Because he's into my area. And I think because of that mobility and the fact that he does run and he can run for a good while, I think makes him a different proposition. And that somebody wanted to pay 30 million quid for him at some point in time. You've got a 30 million pound striker there on the cheap, regardless of what happened at his parent club or his previous club. I think there's a guy there who's bags of potential. And who knows what effect that goal might have had, the one that he scored yesterday. It might be the thing that kickstarts his time at Ibrox.
Just getting a regular game will make a difference to him, actually. And we haven't even talked about it tonight, and we're not going to, but I mean, Cantwell's hit a bit of form as well. And when he hits form, actually, you remember just how effective a player he can be. Last question, I don't know if you know the answer. Is Lawrence fit?
Yes, it was just same situation, Lawrence, as with Jack last week. The manager just kind of managing his load, I believe is like a modern phrase for it, basically giving him a rest to make sure he's fit for the next one. Obviously, I think he's spoken the last couple of weeks about players coming out of injury and just having to be careful because of the options that he has in that area of the pitch, and he doesn't have to ask guys to go to the well week after week. He does have that flexibility now. So for me, I think Lawrence comes back into side. I thought he was really impressive against Aberdeen last. And I think he's probably ahead of Jack and Raskin for that slot in time. I think Diomande takes his jersey and he takes that place. But I think we'll see Lawrence back in there on Wednesday night.
Great. Okay, guys, thanks for your time tonight. I'll let you go back and dig out your Taylor Swift costumes and whatever else it is that you're going to take to watch the American football tonight. And if I can just remind everybody that the platform is available, or the Podra is available on a lot of different platforms: Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher and Spotify. There is a pod on Friday night, and I believe it is Craig and Grant, but keep an eye on Gersnet Twitter and they'll keep you up to date on that. And I would say there's probably a decent chance there may be some reaction pods after Wednesday night's match as well. So again, keep an eye on the Twitter feed for that. And better still, if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, they're all published there shortly after going. So thanks again, guys. Thanks for coming along tonight. Thanks for putting up with me. It was interesting to hear what you had to say on what's been a reasonably decent weekend for Rangers. Just think the next time the pod comes out, we could be top of the league. It's been a while since we had a chance to say that. Thanks for listening and good night.